Hello everyone, welcome back to this channel and welcome back to this playlist in which we will be exploring explainable AI for deep learning models. In today's video, we will be taking a look at perturbation-based XAI techniques, more specifically LIME and SHAP. The agenda for today's video is as follows. First, we're going to briefly review what we've learned in our previous video about local versus global predictions. We'll take a look at perturbation-based techniques, and then we're going to implement LIME and SHAP using Google Colab and a simple neural network classifier for the iris dataset. So as we've said and explored in our previous video, local predictions focus on justifying a single prediction, so why a model thinks this specific data sample is, for example, a Setosa iris flower, whereas global explanations offer a global view of the logic behind or the internal mechanics behind this neural network and how it maps inputs to certain outputs. From our previous video, we've observed different types of post-hoc methods. So those are XAI techniques that can be applied after training the model to explain predictions both locally and globally. In this video, we will look at perturbation-based methods in more detail. So what are perturbation-based methods? These techniques explains neural networks through altering the inputs of the models, whether it's through modifying the sample or removing some features and observing the changes that has on the prediction of such models. And two main examples of such techniques is the local interpretable model-agnostic explanations, or LIME, which provides local explanations, and Shapley Adaptive explanations, which uses game theory to look at the impact of features on the model's predictions. And SHAP offers both local and global explanations. LIME was first introduced in a revolutionary paper in 2016 called Why Should I Trust You? Explaining the predictions of any classifier. This article was authored by Marco Ribeiro, Samir Singh, and Carlos Gestrin, and it addressed the black box problem of artificial intelligence, where highly accurate complex algorithms like deep neural networks cannot explain why they made a specific decision. LIME is a perturbation-based technique, meaning it starts by modifying the input data around a specific data sample and seeing how the model's classification or regression changes. For example, for image data, it removes or modifies image segments. For text, it removes certain words, and for tabular data, it modifies the features through sampling from its distribution. Then, LIME trains a simple model, such as a linear regression, weighted by their proximity to the original data point, and this local surrogate model then highlights which input features plays a role in the predictions for that specific case. So looking at this image, we can see that this is an example of what an output of a LIME explanation is. First, we can see how likely the model thinks it's a certain class, and then there's a set of if-then rules that can be observed that look at the different features and the if-then rules for those features that push towards a specific prediction. And we can also see that there's a feature importance list on the side that can offer users a better understanding of the local explanation of such predictions. Shapley Adaptive explanations is an explainable AI technique that is based on cooperative game theory. Based on Shapley values from economics, SHAP provides a unified framework for understanding both local and global explanations, or local explanations of the predictions and global model behavior. And it calculates the contribution of each feature by considering all possible feature combinations. And then it assigns a Shapley value to each feature, representing its marginal contribution to the model's prediction. So now that we've understood the basis or briefly seen how both SHAP and LIME can offer explanations on a local and global manner, let's jump into the code and see how we can apply it to a simple neural network that is used for classification. So in this Google Colab notebook, we will first create our fully connected neural network that is going to classify irises based on tabular data. So we're going to use the iris dataset that is provided by scikit-learn, and we're going to load the data, and we're going to feed in the feature names as columns. We're going to also specify the target label, which is the type of iris. And we're going to split the data into inputs and outputs. We're going to one-hot encode the outputs and scale them such that the model can converge to a solution easily. So let me run this block. So it's going to load the data set. So, and of course, we need to wait for Google Colab to connect first. We can take a look at the data set. And we can see that based on this, the sepal length, the width, the petal length and width, we can have different types of irises, which are that range. So if I look at the unique values for the target variables, we have 3 types of unique irises. We're going to construct a really simple sequential model, and we're going to use Keras to build it. So we're going to have a sequential model with 3 layers, with the last layer being the output layer, and we're going to use Adam as an optimizer. We're going to use categorical cross entropy, since we have 3 types of irises, 3 target variables that we've hot encoded. And so we have 3 outputs nodes. And we're going to then fit this model for 20 epochs, and we're going to evaluate and see the accuracy of this model. We can see that the accuracy is not that high, but this is besides the point. This tutorial aims to look at how we can use LIME and SHAP to explain this model's predictions. What if we wanted to take a look at the model's predictions? We can do that using the model.predict, and when we print out these predictions, we can see for each test sample, we have 3 outputs representing the probability scores of each target class and how much the model thinks that this specific test sample is a specific class. And for us to get 1 output rather than 3, we can use the argmax function, in which we can pass it the predictions and tell it to look at the maximum probability out of each of the 3. And once we get that, we can look at what the model has predicted in terms of what class is the correct class. And we can also do that for y-test, which is what one-hot encoded, and we can compare them. As we can see, this is the model's predictions. It has, for example, successfully predicted the first 2 samples, but the third sample is misclassified, and that's why we get an accuracy score of 90.6% when we use the accuracy score metric from scikit-learn. Okay, to use LIME within our Google Colab notebook, we would need to first install LIME and then import LIME and LIME tabular. For us to use LIME, we would need to also create an explainer object. And in this case, since we are dealing with tabular data, we would need a LIME tabular explainer. However, LIME can also work in cases where data is images or text. And when we define the explainer object, we need to pass it the training data, which is our X-train. we need to pass it the feature names, which is the x.columns. And we need to pass it the class names, which we can find from the iris dataset. Since we've loaded the iris dataset previously, we can see that the iris dataset has a data key. This is the data. We also have the target, or maybe it's called, I think, targets. I don't remember. Target names. If we look at the target names key, we can see that it has the different types of irises. So we pass this as the class names. We want it to be verbose, and the mode is classification. So if this was a regression problem, then we would need to specify regression. We also need to create a prediction function, because we're going to pass this prediction function into our explain instance function over here. So this is a simple function in which we will get in the NumPy test sample. We're going to convert it into a tensor and pass it into model.predict. And then getting this prediction, we will pass it into the explain instance with the test sample we're trying to explain, and the maximum number of features that we want to show. And in this case, we only have 4, so we don't need to even specify this. We only have 4 features, but if we had more, we would need to specify the maximum number of features that we want to see in our explanation. And then, of course, we need to show it into our notebook. If you run this alone, you won't see anything, but if we wanted to see the explanation, we can do this. So I'll go ahead and run this. So this is us creating the explainer instance or object. We're going to then print the target columns, which target columns is not defined because we have not run this yet. We can see that the first sample is a setosa. This is the true class. And then when we look at this is the details of the linear model that it has created. And when we look at the prediction probabilities, we can see that the model has successfully predicted that this is a setosa with 100% certainty. And we can see why it has done that. Because the sepal width was greater than 0.56, the model discarded the versicolor class. Because the petal length was less than a certain value, then it has also disregarded this class. And we can see the feature importance over here and how it has assisted the models in its prediction. So this is LIME and how you can use it to provide local explanations. But what about SHaP? SHaP, as we know, is a global, it provides global and local explanations. Okay, so for us to use SHaP, we would need to import it and initialize JavaScript so that it can show the plots and explanations over here. We're going to also, similarly as we've done for the line, we're going to create an explainer object, pass it the model and the chain dataset. Then we're going to get the SHaP values for the X test. And if we wanted a global explanation for the model in terms of classifying the first class, which is class 0, not class 1, it takes some time. Unlike we get 75 data samples, and this is the X test. So if we look at X test, the length of X test, it's 75 samples. And for each sample, we get 4 features. These are the scores for each feature. And the probability of the class itself. So if we wanted to observe the explanations of the model's behavior for the first class, we would need to look at all the 75 data samples, all the features, but we're going to isolate the first class. And then we're going to generate what is called a bees swarm plot, which you can see over here by running this. Okay, so this is explanations. We can see that this is a bees swarm plot with each row representing a feature within our data set, and the impact it has on the model's predictions for the specific class. Within each row represents the specific data sample within the data set. So we have 75 dots over here, each representing a specific value or feature within the data sample. And the position of the dot, left or right, shows how much that feature and that data sample has changed the prediction towards being setosa. So, for example, feature 2 has somewhat influenced negatively or pushed the prediction away from the setosa prediction. So left has decreased the probability of classification, whereas right, the positive values, has pushed the classification towards that prediction, the probability towards that classification of setosa. Red means that the feature is high up there, and blue means the feature is low in importance. So this is the model's behavior or logic with regards to the features and how it contributes to the setosa class. If we wanted to look at the versicolor class, I believe the first class is versicolor, yeah? You can see that the behavior is a bit different. Okay. What if we wanted to take a look at a local explanation and what a model thinks a specific instance is and why it does that? We can use the force plot to do that. To look at the first prediction or the first test sample with all the features and the first class, so the SHaP values for the first class, so what the model thinks the first test sample with all the features is in terms of the first class, we can see that it starts at a base value. So this is with the expected value of a test sample. The model's expected value in terms of class probability, and then it looks at how each feature contributes to a single prediction. So in this case, for the prediction of class setosa, the model is pushing, using these features, these features push the prediction towards the setosa class in a positive direction. If we looked at the versicolor, which is class 1, we can see that it starts at the base value, same expected value. However, the features push the prediction away from the versicolor. If I looked at the third class, same behavior is observed. We start at the base expected value, and then the features and the model pushes the prediction away from classifying it as class 2. Okay? We can also observe this behavior using a waterfall plot. And so we can do it in this manner, just as we've done above. We can plot the waterfall, plot and feature importance, and how much each feature pushes towards a prediction as follows. So if we look at let's put this back to what it was. It was 0. The same thing can be observed, but in a waterfall manner. So we start at an expected value, so the model, and then these features gradually push the prediction towards a 99.7% accuracy or confidence that it is class 0. If I looked at what the model or how the model would behave if in terms of what it believes about the first class, then this data sample, similar as we've seen in the force plot, these features push away from classifying it as a versicolor.